Right now, one of the keys to survival in Australia is keeping a job in the family, maybe two if you've got a big mortgage. The next is to get a decent pay rise or to consider even changing jobs to achieve that if you have to. Well, tomorrow the latest employment numbers for May they're released. The Reuters survey suggests that economists think the unemployment rate that is, will fall from 4.1% last month to 4% going down. But being in the right job at the right time is obviously the key. Today, the leading recruitment agency, Hayes, released its annual salary guide. Hayes' chief executive in the Asia Pacific is Matthew Dickason, who joins me now. Matthew, many thanks for your time.
Good to be here, Ross.
The last 12 months, we've seen pay claims really start to rise in Australia. It's a form of inflation that we often talk about, putting pressure on interest rates and inflation. What happens over the next 12 months?
I think we continue to see pay increase over the next 12 months, undoubtedly. We've actually seen that 86% of the employers that were in our survey expect or are going to raise pay in the next 12 months. Now, this is a bit down from last year. Last year was 95% and slightly lower moderated levels. So in last year's survey, 66% of employers said they were going to raise pay by more than 3%. This year, it's just less than half of employers said they're going to raise it by more than 3%.
So skills shortage was a big thing.
Yep.
We didn't have the skills. That put pressure on wages in some key sectors. What were those sectors that have seen the biggest pay rises and which are likely to see ongoing pay rises into the future?
I mean, with the areas on defence-related industries are seeing big pay rises and still some big skills shortages. The skills shortage has abated to some extent in the last period, so less employers are saying that they have extreme skills shortages, 20% less than last year.
So okay, is that a combination, or is it one thing, that is the cut in the migration rate, or we've had a lot of migrants come in for starters, right? Then it's going to be cut. But then the second thing is maybe it's even the unwinding of the expectations of being able to put more people on when the companies are just changing their circumstances.
To some extent, I think companies held on to staff, particularly after COVID. And through COVID, and we had that real skill shortages, people held on to their staff as tightly as they possibly could. And there's probably a bit of a shift as far as that's concerned. And actually, if you look at employers' expectations over the next 12 months, we've seen a higher increase in their expectation of engaging temporary workers and contractors versus the engagement of permanent staff versus last year's report. So it's about being a bit more flexible in how they move forward over the next 12 months. But interestingly enough, still 64% of them expect business to improve, which actually is higher than last year, which was 55%.
Which is fascinating. So therefore, are there any areas or sectors that you're identifying where there will be above average wage rises over the course of the next 12 months? You've mentioned defence. Are there any other areas where there's likely to be above average pay claims?
There's still significant skill shortages in healthcare, in education, right? So we'll still see probably some above average pay rises in those areas. There's some interesting things that come out as well. Rail infrastructure, some of the highest paying jobs, right, are actually in rail infrastructure, engineers and that. And you think about the infrastructure build that we've got going on across Australia, that's probably not that surprising, but it comes out in the data.
And then tell me, is it still a situation where employers, you say, trying to hang on to workers would give those pay rises, but is it now a case where people have now prepared to shop around their employment to just see what they're worth, to see whether they're being paid at the optimum level?
Yeah, I mean, so 77% of the candidates or employees that we surveyed said that they were either looking for a job now or going to look for a new job.
That's an awful lot, I will say.
It is a lot of people, and 71% of them said that's because they're looking for a pay rise. And we know that the best way to get a pay rise is quite often to change jobs, and that's what's driving some of the thinking. Employers are trying to do the best they possibly can, and interestingly enough, they said that cost of living, which is so topical in the media, is the thing that's most in front of their minds. So they're trying to balance it and trying to do their best for employees, but employees recognise that the best way to get a pay rise is to look out in the marketplace. And so we're starting to see some of that take effect.
I'll tell you what, Matthew, good to have you on the program today. Many thanks for your time. We'll do it again very shortly.
Great, thanks, Ross.